there is a strange misunderstanding that is spread across the modern world. A misunderstanding so common that millions of people spend their entire lives chasing something they already possess: confidence. Most people believe confidence is something you can see. They think confidence is loud. They think confidence is dominance. They think confidence is walking into a room and instantly becoming the center of attention. They think confidence is having all the answers, never doubting yourself, never feeling fear, never experiencing uncertainty. But that is not confidence. That is performance. And performance is fragile because the moment a trust disappears, performance collapses. The moment validation disappears, performance begins to crack. The moment the crowd stops watching, the mask becomes heavy. Real confidence is something entirely different. It is invisible. It exists beneath the surface. It speaks without speaking. It influences without forcing. It attracts without chasing. And the people who understand the secret language possess a power that cannot be taken away by criticism, failure, rejection, or circumstance. Because their confidence is not built on what others think, it is built on what they know. The world teaches people to seek approval from parents, from friends, from strangers, from social media, from bosses, from society. And because they spend their lives seeking approval, they unknowingly hand over control of their self-worth. Their confidence rises when people praise them and falls when people criticize them. They become emotional stock markets, constantly fluctuating according to outside opinions. But confidence was never meant to work that way. True confidence is an internal agreement, an agreement between you and yourself, a promise that says, I will trust myself even when the outcome is uncertain. Most people never make that promise. They wait. They wait until they feel ready. They wait until their differs everything. They wait until certainty arrives. But certainty never arrives first. Action arrives first. Growth arrives first. Experience arrives first. And confidence follows. Think about a child learning to walk. That child falls hundreds of times. Yet they never question whether walking is possible. They never sit on the floor and decide they are not talented enough. They never compare themselves to other children. They simply continue. Failure does not become identity. Failure becomes feedback, and that is why children learn so quickly. But somewhere along the way, adults forget this lesson. They begin attaching meaning to every mistake. Every rejection becomes proof they are not enough. Every setback becomes evidence they should quit. Every criticism becomes a wound. And over time, their confidence slowly erodes. Not because they are incapable, but because they have forgotten how growth works. Growth is messy. Growth is uncomfortable. Growth requires uncertainty. And confidence is not the absence of uncertainty. Confidence is the willingness to move despite it. Dale Carnegie understood something that many people miss. The most admired individuals were not fearless. They simply stopped allowing fear to control their actions. Because fear is natural. Fear appears whenever you attempt something important. Fear appears whenever growth becomes possible. Fear appears whenever you move beyond what is familiar. The goal is not to eliminate fear. The goal is to become bigger than it. And that begins by understanding the secret language confidence speaks. Confidence does not say, look at me. Confidence says, I know who I am. Confidence does not say, everyone must approve of me. Confidence says, I approve of my own effort. Confidence does not say, I cannot fail. Confidence says, I can recover. And that single shift changes everything, because life becomes different when your confidence is built on resilience instead of perfection. The world has confused confidence with noise, and that confusion has created generations of people who spend more time trying to look confident than becoming confident. They study appearance, they study body language, they study what to say, how to stand, how to impress, how to appear powerful. Yet beneath the surface, many remain uncertain. Because confidence is not created by appearance. Confidence is created by evidence. The evidence you collect from keeping promises to yourself. The evidence you collect from facing discomfort. The evidence you collect from doing difficult things repeatedly. That is why the strongest confidence is never borrowed. It is earned. Think about the promises people make to themselves. I'll wake up earlier. I'll start tomorrow. I'll become disciplined. I'll finally change. But then tomorrow arrives and nothing happens. The promise is broken. At first, it seems insignificant, but every broken promise sends a message to the mind. A message that says, my words cannot be trusted. And when your own mind stops trusting your words, confidence begins to disappear. Because confidence is trust, not trust in the world, not trust in luck, trust in yourself. The knowledge that when you say you will do something, you will, no matter how you feel, no matter how baffled it becomes, no matter who is watching. That kind of self-trust creates an energy that people immediately recognize. They may not be able to explain it, but they feel it. Because confidence has a language beyond words, it reveals itself through consistency, through calmness, through emotional control, through quiet certainty. And certainty is attractive because certainty creates stability. In a world full of chaos, people naturally gravitate towards stability. That is why leaders inspire confidence, not because they know everything, but because they remain steady when others panic. Consider the story of Dale Carnegie himself. He was not born confident. He grew up in difficult conditions. He struggled socially. He feared public speaking. The very thing that later made him famous once terrified him. Imagine that. A man remembered around the world for communication once feared standing in front of people. But he did not wait until fear disappeared. He acted despite it, again and again, speech after speech, failure after failure, improvement after improvement, until confidence emerged, not because someone gave it to him, but because he earned it. That is the pattern hidden behind every confident person you admire. You see the result. You do not see the repetitions. You see the certainty. You do not see the years of doubt they walk through. You see the success. You do not see the thousands of small actions that created it, because confidence grows quietly, like a tree. It begins underground, invisible, long before anyone notices it. And for a while, it seems like nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, roots are forming, strength is developing, foundations are being built. Then one day, growth becomes visible. And people call it talent, they call it charisma, they call it natural confidence. But they are only seeing final stage. They are not seeing the years spent building roots. This is why comparison is so dangerous. You compare your beginning to someone else's result. You compare your first attempt to someone's thousandth. You compare your hidden struggles to their visible victories. And in doing so, you create unnecessary doubt. The confident person understands a different truth. Their competition is not other people. Their competition is yesterday's version of themselves. Every day becomes a simple challenge. Can I become slightly stronger, slightly wiser, slightly more disciplined, slightly more courageous? And over time, those small improvements compound into transformation. Not overnight, not instantly, but inevitably. Because confidence is not built in giant moments. It is built in ordinary moments, repeated consistently. The workout you complete when you don't feel like training. The conversation you initiate when you feel nervous. The opportunity you pursue despite uncertainty. The truth you tell despite fear. The promise you keep when nobody would know if you broke it. These moments seem small, yet they are creating evidence. And evidence creates belief. Confidence is not built by what you say to others. It is built by what you prove to yourself. And once you understand that truth, you stop chasing confidence. You start creating it. Because confidence is not a feeling you wait for. It is a result you build. And one of the most surprising ways to build it has nothing to do with speaking. It has everything to do with listening. The world assumes confident people are great talkers. But if you study the most respected individuals in any room, you will notice something unexpected. They are often the best listeners. They do not rush to interrupt. They do not desperately search for opportunities to impress. They do not dominate every conversation. Instead, they observe. They absorb, they understand, and because they understand, their words carry weight. That was one of the greatest lessons Dale Carnegie taught. People are far more interested in themselves than they are in you. At first, that sounds disappointing, but it is actually liberating because it means you do not have to constantly prove your value. You do not have to perform. You do not have to force attention. You simply need to understand people. And when people feel understood, they naturally become interested in you. This is where confidence and influence become connected. Most people believe influence comes from speaking persuasively, but influence begins much earlier. It begins when another person feels respected, when they feel heard, when they feel valued, and the ability to create that feeling requires confidence, not loud confidence, quiet confidence. The confidence to focus on others instead of obsessing over yourself. The confidence to remain present instead of worrying about how you are being perceived. The confidence to ask questions without needing to be the smartest person in the room. Because insecurity constantly asks, how do I look? Do they like me? What do they think of me? But confidence asks, what can I learn? What matters to this person? How can I understand better? And that difference changes every interaction. People trust confident individuals because confident individuals make others feel comfortable. They create safety, they create certainty, they create connection. The insecure mind is consumed with self consciousness. The confident mind is free to focus outward. That is why confidence feels powerful. It expands your attention beyond yourself. And when your attention expands, your opportunities expand. You begin noticing details others miss, patterns others overlook, lessons others ignore. You become more aware, more adaptable, more effective. And adaptability is one of the most important forms of confidence because life rarely goes according to plan. Markets change, relationships change, technology changes, circumstances change, and those who rely on certainty often struggle. But those who trust themselves become resilient because their confidence is not dependent on conditions, it is dependent on character. And character remains when everything else changes. Imagine two people facing the same challenge. One immediately panics, the other remains calm. The difference is not intelligence. The difference is trust. One trusts circumstances, the other trusts themselves. One believes confidence comes from guarantees, the other knows confidence comes from adaptability. That is why resilient people appear powerful, not because they avoid problems, but because they know they can handle them. Every obstacle becomes proof, every setback becomes evidence, every challenge becomes another reason to trust themselves. And over time, this creates a confidence that cannot be shaken by external events because it has survived too much. It has been tested too many times. It has earned its strength. Think about a sword forged in fire. The heat does not destroy it. The heat strengthens it. The pressure does not weaken it. The pressure refines it. Human confidence works the same way. The difficulties you survive become part of your identity. The obstacles you overcome become proof of your capability. The fears you face become reminders of your courage. And eventually, you stop asking, what if I fail? You start asking, what can I learn? That question changes everything because learning removes fear from failure. When every outcome becomes information, failure loses its power. And the moment failure loses its power, confidence begins to grow rapidly. Because now you are no longer trapped. You are free to act, free to experiment, free to improve, free to become. That freedom is the secret language of confidence. It whispers, you do not need guarantees. You do not need perfection. You do not need perfection. You do not need approval. You only need movement. And movement creates momentum. Momentum creates belief. Belief creates confidence. Confidence creates opportunity. And opportunity changes lives. Action creates evidence, and evidence creates confidence. Action creates evidence, and evidence creates confidence. Not the other way around. Most people have it backwards. They think confidence comes first. They think one day they will wake up feeling fearless, powerful, and ready. But that day never arrives because confidence is not the cause of action. Confidence is the reward for action. And every successful person in history learned this lesson. They acted before they felt prepared. They moved before they felt certain. They stepped forward while doubt was still whispering in their ears, because they understood something most people never realize. Fear and confidence often travel together. The presence of fear does not mean you are weak. It often means you are growing. It means you are approaching a new level. It means you are leaving the familiar behind. Every meaningful achievement begins with discomfort. Every transformation begins with uncertainty. Every breakthrough begins with a decision to move despite fear. That is why courage matters more than confidence at the beginning. Courage is what creates confidence. Confidence is what remains after courage has been practiced enough times. Think about the first time you tried anything important, the first presentation, the first interview, the first business idea, the first difficult conversation, the first major risk. You were nervous, you were uncertain, you were uncertain, you were uncomfortable, yet you survived. And because you survived, your confidence increased. Not because the situation changed, but because your understanding of yourself changed. You learned something valuable. You learned that you were stronger than your fear. That realization changes a person forever. Because from that moment forward, life stops feeling like something that happens to you. It becomes something you participate in. You stop seeing yourself as powerless. You stop seeing yourself as fragile. You stop seeing yourself as dependent on perfect circumstances. Instead, you begin seeing yourself as capable, adaptable, resilient. And resilience is one of the most attractive forms of confidence. People admire resilience because it cannot be faked. Anyone can appear confident when life is easy. Anyone can appear strong when everything is going according to plan. But true confidence reveals itself during difficulty, when things fall apart, when plans fail, when rejection arrives, when disappointment strikes. That is where character becomes visible, and character is the foundation of lasting confidence, because confidence built on success disappears when success disappears. But confidence built on character remains. It remains because it is rooted in values rather than outcomes. It is rooted in discipline rather than emotion. It is rooted in identity rather than circumstances. That is why the strongest people are often the calmest. They are not calm because life has been easy. They are calm because life has tested them again and again and again. And each time they survived. Each challenge became proof. Each obstacle became evidence. Each setback became another reason to trust themselves. Eventually, they stop fearing storms because they know they can endure them. That is what makes them powerful. Not the absence of difficulty, but the certainty that difficulty cannot break them. And once you reach that level of confidence, something remarkable happens. You stop living defensively. You stop protecting yourself from every possible failure. You stop shrinking your dreams to match your comfort zone. Instead, you begin expanding. You begin taking risks. You begin pursuing opportunities. You begin creating a future instead of waiting for one. Because confidence and possibility are connected. The more confidence you build, the larger your world becomes. The more self-trust you develop, the more opportunities you are willing to pursue. The more resilient you become, the less fear controls your decisions. And when fear stops controlling your decisions, your life changes dramatically. Because moments of limitation which are not distant, they are eternal. Most barriers are not physical, they are psychological. Most prisons are not built from steel, they are built from doubt. And confidence is the key that unlocks those prisons. Not overnight, not magically, but gradually, through action, through growth, through experience, through self-respect, and through the repeated decision to trust yourself, even when the path is unclear, even when the outcome is uncertain, even when nobody else believes in you yet. Because ultimately, confidence is not about convincing the world. It is about convincing yourself. It is about becoming the kind of person who knows they can handle whatever comes next. And once you know that, everything changes. The strongest confidence comes from knowing who you are, even when nobody is watching.